Hello, hello, I'm Carl Harvey, and welcome to a brand new and very special edition of The Big Life. I am genuinely so excited because today you're going to discover how you can manifest more of your desires, but in an easy and relaxed manner, a healthy and positive way for the highest good of all, without stress, without struggle, or even hard work, and more on that later. You also learn how to dream up your ideal scene and then realize it in your life. You'll find out how to let go of the inevitable doubts and fears and limiting beliefs that pop up when you set big new goals. And you'll discover the secrets of the magical path where you create the big life that you choose, but in a relaxed, fun, simple, yet magnificently powerful way. And it's all thanks to my special guest today. He's a best-selling author and composer, and is the co-founder and president of New World Library, a brilliant company that publishes books that change lives, including Deepak Chopra's legendary 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, Eckhart Tolle's transformational The Power of Now, and Shakti Gawain's wonderful book on creative visualization. He's also the author of many of my all-time favorite personal growth books, which have had the biggest impact on my ability to create a big life. They include The Magical Path, How to Think Like a Millionaire, The Type Z Guide to Success, and Visionary Business, which has impacted the business model for the big life more than any other book. His new book, which is called Tantra for the West, is fascinating. I just started reading it yesterday and I'm already hooked. And no, it's not all about sex. I'm genuinely so excited and humbled to have this man on the show. His unique approach and insights will appeal to anyone who wants to live big, but without the type A, chest-thumping, success at any cost approach that plagues much of the success literature. I know that, like me, you'll be fascinated and inspired by his unique yet very effective approach to manifesting your desires. Again, I've learned more about manifesting from this man than practically any other person on the planet. His systems and philosophies truly work and help you to manifest abundance, serve humanity, and experience more love on a day-to-day basis. So stay tuned, get present, and be sure to take lots of notes. With great pleasure, please let me introduce you to the wonderful Marc Allen. Marc, welcome to The Big Life. I'm so glad to have you here, my man.
Thank you, Carl, and thank you for that great introduction. That was wonderful.
Thanks, man. My pleasure. Thanks for helping me create my big life. Like, you've had the most tremendous impact on me, and as I mentioned to you before we started recording, like, all of your books have had the most profound impact on me, and I can't wait to share your wisdom with the Big Life audience. So as always, let's jump right in and provide as much value as possible. Let me start with this: the publishing company, composer, best-selling books. Surely you're one of those type A, super hard-working people that works all day long and has had it all figured out from when you were a teen or in your 20s, and you've just been on this upward trajectory ever since. Is that right?
Well, as you know, the truth is the exact opposite. I'm not a type A. I'm a type Z, I like to say, meaning the opposite of type A, meaning Z as in sleeping a lot. I love to sleep a lot. I was a musician in my 20s and an actor part of the time, and I love those hours that you never do anything before 1 in the afternoon. So when I finally started my company, when I turned 30, I decided to do this experiment. I decided to go for my big dream and go for my dream life. And part of my dream was to continue to be as lazy as I want to be.
Yeah.
So that became an important goal of mine, to work only when I feel like it. And I ended up building a wonderfully successful multi-million-dollar publishing company, only working when I feel like it. To this day, I never do Mondays.
Yeah.
That's to myself. I don't do mornings. I get started 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I found that's enough. I found your work really does expand to fill what the time you allot for it. And you can take a break when you feel like it and still create something beautiful and successful.
Beautifully put, and I couldn't agree more. And when I first started reading these ideas in your books, I mean, they shocked me by how bold they are and how different they are to what much of the success literature teaches us. But luckily, I decided to experiment with it, and which is one of the principles we'll talk about later, and it had a huge positive impact on my life. So everyone watching, know that this is not something that just Marc can do. This is something that literally anyone can do. Tell us a little bit about that. You've written in a couple of your books about a kind of moment of clarity and insight that you had on your 30th birthday, and how you went from, being a meandering part-time actor and doing a few bits to suddenly having this bold dream to create a publishing company that would impact millions of people. Talk us through that moment and that transformation, if you could.
It was my 30th birthday that changed my life, and I did something that I teach to this day. Anybody can do it, and it's really very simple. But I feel like I wandered around through my 20s. I often say I had the opposite of the Midas touch. Whatever I touched fell apart. I was in a theater company right out of college because I wanted to be an actor and a musician, and I wrote music for these plays and was in them, and it was great, but the company fell apart. Then I got into another company, and that fell apart quite quickly. Then I wandered into a Zen center, and I got kicked out for breaking the rules. I tried a disastrous back to the land experiment that did not last very long. And then I just wandered around. I got fired as a typesetter for not showing up on time. I got fired as a busboy and dishwasher for being too slow. Didn't drive the dishes fast enough for him. And all through my 20s, it's just, I kept getting fired. And so then I woke up, the day I turned 30 is the day that changed my life. I woke up in this state of shock, realizing I was 30. This voice said, "You're 30. You're not a kid anymore." Somehow being 29, I could feel like a teenager, and it was okay to have nothing happening. But somehow when I was 30, it was like, okay, time to grow up.
Yeah, grown up now.
What am I going to do? And I literally just paced up and down my little slum apartment. I had a real cheap little rental. I had no job. I had no steady income. I don't think I had a bank account. I had no family support. I was scrounging, a word we used all the time, scrounging to get my rent together every month by doing this or that odd job. And then I turned 30, and suddenly it wasn't cool anymore. And I paced up and down, and then I remembered this little game I played during my disastrous back to the land experiment when I was about 22. We were sitting around a fire outside, a bunch of us, and this one couple said, "Let's play this game we play at church camp. Let's imagine 5 years have passed and everything has gone as well as you could imagine. What would your life look like?" We all ran around the fire. I don't remember a word of what I said, so it had no impact on my life. But the day I turned 30, I remembered playing that game. And I said, okay, this is worthwhile. I'm going to do this. This time, though, I took a sheet of paper. I wrote ideal scene at the top. That's what they called it, your ideal scene. Imagine your ideal scene. So you imagine 5 years have passed, and everything has gone as well as you could imagine, ideally. Much to my amazement, what spilled out was, I have a publishing company. Mm-hmm. I'd never had any interest in business at all. I'd been an actor and a musician and a spiritual seeker. I'd been at Zen centers. I spent 4 years at a Tibetan center.
Wow.
I wandered all around in my 20s doing all kinds of things, but never anything business related. I'd never read a business textbook. I'd never studied it or anything. But I put, ideally, okay, I have this successful publishing company that publishes my books and other books and also puts out my music, and I have a beautiful big white home on a hill in a beautiful place. And then even though doubts and fears started to just totally overwhelm me, I added what has become kind of my unique contribution to humanity, because I said, if I dare dream ideally, I said, oh, and I want a life of ease. Yep. I only want to when I feel like it. I want to create a company, but I don't want it to take over my life. I want time to write and play music and goof off. Basically, my experiment is to only work when I feel like it. And that's my ideal. To sleep, I knew it meant sleep late, because I like to sleep till about 11. Sleep late, don't do Mondays, never do weekends. Just, a few afternoons a week, focus Tuesday through Friday. Friday's kind of optional for me. Tuesday through Thursday, I focus in the afternoon on my job, my business, what I'm creating. And that became my experiment. And my doubts and fears nearly overwhelmed me. I remember them vividly and saying, it won't work. You have to work 60 to 80 hours a week to start up a business. I had that inner voice. And I said, well, I don't know if you do. I'm going to try. I'm going to experiment. They said, it won't work. I said, look, doubts and fears. I literally was talking to them. I said, if it doesn't work, I'll be no worse off than I am right now. Right? I have no income. And so even my doubts and fears had to admit, well, yeah, you don't have a job, you don't have any income, you don't have any money. So how much worse could it get? So my doubts and fears went along with this experiment. I said, I'm going to experiment with this. Go for my dream, but do it in my own lazy way. It really appealed to the lazy side of me.
Oh, yes.
To try. Yes. So that was my experiment, to try to be as lazy as I wanted to be and yet go for my dream. And that's what I did, and it worked.
Incredible. Before we go on to the doubts and fears, because I want to dig a little deeper into that, because I know that resonates with a lot of people watching. But this ideal scene exercise, very simple, yet when I first discovered it in your book, I've done it ever since, and maybe that was 3 or 4 years ago, and I found it tremendously powerful. Like, it almost magnetizes me to the ideas and opportunities and the synchronicities and the people that will get me there, especially when you preface it with the easy and relaxed manner, healthy and positive way, which we'll talk to as well in a little while. But the ideal scene, why do you think it's so powerful, and would you give any further instruction or advice to everyone watching about how to get the best possible results out of doing that exercise?
Yes, it's so powerful. I think the spoken word and the written word can be incredibly powerful if they're the right words. Daring to imagine, daring to dream is essential.
Yeah.
I like you talking about the big life. You can only live the big life if you first dare to dream it. And that ideal scene tricks you into daring to dream. You just ask yourself a simple question. Okay, let me imagine 5 years have passed and everything has gone as well as I could imagine. What would my life look like? It tricks you into really thinking big. And that absolutely changed my life, really daring to write that down. I remember even halfway through, I was just overwhelmed with doubts and fears, but I continued. And then after my ideal scene, I stared at it a while and I wrote a list of goals. I realized I had goals in there. And then I rewrote my list of goals as affirmations. To this day,
beautiful.
I carry around in my pocket, and I have right in the center of my laptop here, I have it in a file, but I have my goals as affirmations, starting with the words in an easy and relaxed manner, in a healthy and positive way, in its own perfect time for the highest good of all. Then I affirm every one of my goals. I'm creating a successful publishing company in an easy and relaxed manner. I'm writing books that change the world. And then also I'm guided by spirit every moment. And I have a wonderful marriage filled with grace, ease, and lightness.
Beautiful.
I affirm all these things in writing. There's something very powerful about putting things in writing.
I agree. I think there's real magic in it. Like, there is something there, whether it's communicating with the universe or infinite intelligence or your subconscious mind or a combination of all of the above. I find that when you write your goals down, especially when you get yourself in that state of higher energy where you're like, no, this is, I'm going to dare to dream. I'm going to dare to dream. What would my ideal life look like? And not allowing those fears and limitations to hold you back. In fact, let's delve a little bit deeper into that, because I'd invite everyone watching, make sure you, at the very least, you do this ideal scene exercise. Play with it, open to the possibility that it could have as big an impact on your life as it has on Mark's and had on mine as well. And it's so simple. You can do it in half an hour or an hour. I actually do it. I take myself to one of my favourite coffee shops, somewhere nice and zen and chilled, get a nice coffee, and I sit there for like half a day and I sketch it out. And I do this once or twice a year. And I've got this beautiful big moleskin journal. And I just jot down in here, and I buy nice pens as well. This is a new Mont Blanc pen I got, because for me I want it to communicate to every part of me in the subconscious as well that I'm investing in myself. I get the best pad, the best pen, and it's these little touches for me anyway that have had a big impact. But then what happens is you dream, you get inspired, you get it down on paper, and you're like, oh, and then the fears and the doubts and the panics and the insecurities come flooding in. Now, I've come to realise that's very much part of the process and not to be run away from. But what advice would you give people watching who, they go through the exercise, they set that big dream, and then they start panicking like, whoa, who am I to dream this big? What do you do then? Because obviously 95% of people stop at that point and give in to the fears and doubts. How do we ensure that we don't do that and instead meander our way through that path?
I think you've asked the best question of all. Like, you're getting right down to the essential thing, the nitty-gritty. Because I often think, looking back, the older I get, the simpler I see it. There's just two real essential things to do. One is to dare to dream. And that little ideal scene exercise tricks you into that. You just imagine 5 years have passed, everything has gone as well as you could imagine. What would your life look like? Okay, that's a real simple thing to do and fun. But then inevitably, doubts and fears just arise. So the other essential thing is dealing with the doubts and all the doubts and fears that inevitably arise. That's the other essential ongoing thing. And that's the most important work. That's the essential work. You get those two things going, your ideal scene, and you deal with the doubts and fears. You, as Eckhart says in The Power of Now, so succinctly, he says, get the inside right, the outside will fall into place. That's exactly what I've found, and I've said in my books, usually in a lot more words than that, but you dare to dream, and then you deal with those doubts and fears internally. You deal with it, and as soon as you do deal effectively with them, you start seeing all these changes in the world. The outer world just reflects our inner work, and almost all the important work is the inner work.
You write in, I think this was in the Type Z Guide to Success, quote, our doubts and fears are our greatest stumbling blocks. Almost all the work to create the greatest success we can imagine is inner work. And I couldn't agree more. In my life, what I found to be really useful, I studied NLP for a long time, and they do some great work on belief change. I meditated a lot, and I also spent a lot of time visualizing my ideal scene over and over again, because every time the fears came up, rather than giving in to them, I'd sort of acknowledge them and not resist. It wasn't about saying, no, I can't think like that. It was noticing it and going, oh, okay, that's interesting. I wonder where that came from. And trying my best to let it pass by focusing on what I wanted to create instead. I found that series of things tremendously useful. What did you do? Is there any insights that you can give people watching about actual steps that they could take when these doubts and fears come in?
I know that the first thing I did was just look at it as an experiment. Just think to doubts and fears, let me try this experiment. To go for my dreams, but do it in my own easy way. That's that. Then the main ongoing process I had discovered, core belief process, that I talk about in several of my books. When I was 28, I wandered into this weekend seminar taught by a man named Ken Keyes Jr. He'd written a book in the 70s, this was way back there in the 70s. He wrote a book called Handbook to Higher Consciousness.
Oh.
And he was great. He understood a few things really well and could teach them, and I'm grateful for what I learned there, especially the core belief process. That's where I learned what he calls the core belief process. Now, over the years now, I like to refer to it as underlying beliefs, because core beliefs sound so solid and unchanging.
Right.
But it really is, it's 8 simple questions that allow us to look at our belief structure and look at what we really believe, and then we see how to change that. Because, and Ken understood this so clearly, our beliefs are not true in themselves. Many people have totally different beliefs, completely opposite beliefs than we do, which are true. Well, they become true in our experience if we believe them. Ken understood that. Our beliefs about whether we're poor or wealthy or smart or stupid or whatever, our beliefs about everything are not true in themselves, but they're true in our experience if we believe them. So let's look at all our beliefs. Let's look at all the fears that come up around anything we dare to try to accomplish. Let's look at all those fears and see what beliefs those fears are based on.
Mm-hmm.
Our fears are arising because we believe certain things. What do we believe? Like the most specific example I can give, and I do in my books, is around money. Because until my mid-30s, I started my company at when I turned 30. I had no money. I was a total poverty case. The first 5 years were really marginal. We never made money. Our first year sales were $800, I remember.
Woo!
Woo! $3,000 total gross sales. Then we got something out. It was finally we did 30,000, then 60,000, then finally 360,000. But we were still losing money, and that's when I had this breakthrough. I'd reached the point of near bankruptcy. We had a distributor that collapsed and went bankrupt, didn't pay us for 6 months worth of sales.
Wow.
Our books. Our company was on the verge of bankruptcy. Personally, I was $65,000 in credit card debt, US dollars, and this was like the 80s, early 80s.
So that's a good chunk.
Dollars. It was probably a couple $100,000 in today's dollars. I'd used it to invest in my company mostly, plus buy TVs and other goofy things. But I was deep in debt, almost bankrupt, and I had all this anxiety coming up around bankruptcy. And when I realized that, I remembered, oh yes, when you feel anxiety, that's the best time to do this core belief process. When you feel anxiety, so I did it. I remember I was driving in the car on the way to the bank because a bank had sent me another credit card. And so I'd get cash advances on a new card and pay down the minimums on all the other
ones. Wow.
Getting deeper in debt. And it created all this anxiety. And I realized, oh, this is a good time to do the core belief process when you're upset about something. So I looked at that. It's just answering some real simple questions. It's just really looking at how you feel. So how do you feel right now physically? Oh, I'm upset. My stomach is churning. What emotions are you feeling? You just name the emotions. Oh, I'm frustrated. I'm angry. I'm upset. You just name the emotions. And then you go, what are you telling yourself? Oh, I'm telling myself I'm just an idiot. I'm on the verge of bankruptcy. This is so frustrating. This is no fun.
Yeah.
I want to do what's fun in life. This is not fun. You go on and on about what are those things going through your mind, Then you even say, what's the worst that could happen? That's really good. You explore your worst fear. Well, I could go bankrupt. Then what's the worst that could happen? I could die. I could die a hopeless, drunken bum laying in a gutter somewhere, and no one would care, and it could be a long, painful death, and people would just like step over me, and no one would care about my dying. That's the worst I could get to. And it does, you end up chuckling when you really get into your worst fears, because you realize chances are pretty slim that would happen. Somebody would probably haul me off the street or something. Your greatest fears usually do not come true. That's what I learned. Then, after exploring the fear, you say, what's the best thing that could happen in this situation? In workshops now, I've done this hundreds of times with hundreds of people. Almost everyone can really get into their worst fears with great enthusiasm. Then you say, okay, what's the best thing? And what do? We pause. We go, let me think.
Yeah.
And you realize we've been focusing on our fears. We haven't been focusing on what's the best possible scenario. We haven't even asked that question. So I said, the best scenario is I get a distributor that pays me on time. The company makes money. I suddenly get a big fat bonus enough to wipe out all my debt, and I'm profitable. That's the best. And then you say, okay, why isn't that happening? Why isn't the best case happening? Whatever excuse you come up with, that reflects your underlying core belief. I said, well, it's because I'm a fool with money. I don't understand money. I'm out of control. I just don't get it. And so I got down to that belief. I believe I'm a fool with money, out of control. Once you nail a deep belief that's operating in your life, obviously, because I was totally broke. So yes, it's operating. I was a fool with money, out of control. Once you really nail that deep belief, you come up with an affirmation that directly contradicts it and counteracts it.
Boom.
You come up with the opposite words. You start telling yourself. The power of the spoken word is not to be underestimated. I started saying to myself, okay, my belief is I'm a fool, out of control. I'm going to start affirming I am sensible and in control of my finances. I'm creating total financial success in an easy and relaxed manner, in a healthy and positive way.
Exactly.
That became my affirmation. I said that a couple of thousand times over the next few months, and my whole life turned around financially. My whole life completely turned around. I became profitable. My ideal scene happened. I paid off all my debt in one bonus, profit-sharing bonus. My company started cooking. I became sensible and in control of my finances. I realized how simple it all is. It's very simple. Money is not complex. Money is very simple. You simply have to make more than you spend. This took me 5 years of having my own company to figure out that you spend. So you keep a downward pressure on expenses, and you keep finding more and more income. You reach a point where that income exceeds expenses. This is not complex math at all.
And another thing that you taught me is, in terms of abundance, creating financial abundance, is that money basically comes by providing value. Like, the more value you provide in the world, the more abundance that we seem to attract and create. So was there any point you consciously started to focus on how you could add more value, how you could serve more people? Did that play a part in your financial success?
Yes. Yeah. I think it all from looking at my scene.
The ideal scene.
Because when you really look at what do you want to do ideally, you find what you love to do. When you're really doing what you love to do, you really are, you're loving and serving yourself. And in doing that, you inevitably end up loving and serving other people. That's really what it boils down to. I've never known anyone that hasn't gone through that process when they really dare to dream their ideal life. It might take a while. If you've been so burned out in some corporate job or something that the only ideal a person can think of is to be on a beach, hang out on a beach. Okay, you might need to hang out on a beach for 3 weeks or 3 months or something, but you realize after a very short time, hanging out on a beach gets boring. And you're here for something else, some other challenge, some reason, something else. And usually a person's ideal scene will just trick them into what is that? And it involves something that really serves them in some way, fulfills them. And once you fulfill yourself, you're automatically doing stuff that loves and serves other people.
Couldn't agree more. And it completely echoes my experiences, even to the point that I moved to Bondi Beach in Sydney 4 years ago, because that was my biggest dream, to have an internet business where I didn't have to work a couple of hours a day. And I manifested it. It was glorious. And for 3 months, I was the happiest man in the world. And I was like, you know what? I've retired from life. This is fantastic. I was like 27. And then I woke up one day bored. I was like, okay, there's only so long you can sit on a beach. And that's when it started kicking in. Okay, so what do I want to do? How can I serve? I was having a really interesting conversation last night with one of my good friends who popped over, and I mentioned that you were coming on the show and shared some of the things that I'd learned from you. And he has a challenge that I suspect, and I'm mind reading, but I suspect that many of the people watching will have as well. He's a very talented dude. He's one of the best salespeople that I've ever known. I actually worked with him in corporate sales for a little while, and we teamed up, and he's just the most magnificent salesperson, incredibly talented, persuasive, but he doesn't know what his passion is. He doesn't know what that thing is that makes him come alive. He knows his skills, and I know many people watching, they know their skills. They can heal people, or they can serve, or they could do X, Y, or Z. but they haven't found that avenue, that thing that fulfills them and then enables them to serve others. Do you have any tips or guidance on what we can do to figure that out?
Well, I know some people really struggle with this. For me, it was right there in my ideal scene. If you really dare dream your ideal, it'll be there. It'll be there. But I have known people that have struggled with this, and some of them you may need to go off and take some kind of vision quest or something. You may need to take a break and explore things. Some people really grapple with that. For me, I found it in my ideal scene. As soon as I dared dream of the life of my dreams, what life would I love to live ideally? It just popped right into place. Oh, I want to be a writer. I want to be a musician. I want to have this great company that publishes stuff. And I want to have every day be my favorite day of the week because I'm just doing what I love today. Yeah. You know, that was my ideal. And it just emerged when I dared dream my ideal. But I have known over the years, yes, I have met a lot of people that have struggled with that. Even if you say, do your ideal, what's your ideal? They'll, well, I don't know. Okay, then maybe you need to take a break and meditate for a while. Pray for it. Do whatever you need. Maybe you need to go on some kind of vision quest. Nature or something for a while, or something. Depending on your tradition, you can find something in there. But everyone knows, you know deep down what it takes to fulfill you. It's there in your dreams.
I also think, and I'm sort of half plagiarizing Deepak Chopra here, but inherent in every desire is the seed or the mechanism for its fulfillment. So I think that even pointing yourself in that direction of saying, well, I want to figure out what my thing is. I want to figure out what that work is that doesn't feel like work. Because for me, one of the biggest transformations I've had is creating the big life, which to me I invest a lot of time and energy into, but it doesn't feel like work because I'm passionate about it and I love it, and it ticks all of the boxes. And it took me 5 years of hunting, like actually searching, because I was desperate to know what my purpose was and what I was passionate about. And when I started out, I had no clue, and then bit by bit, step by step, it became manifest and it became obvious. And now I look at it and go, oh, of course, I love personal growth. I love the authors. I just want to talk about it all day and I want to share it. But it took me 5 years of trial and error to get there. So I would invite everyone watching to keep focused and not give up on that. Like, keep looking until you find that thing, because it does change everything. Let's go on.
I love that. You really had the key of going for it. When I look back over my 20s, I tried out about 10 different careers, and each one was almost like a complete different personality. And I tried out being a Zen monk. I tried out being a back to the land type guy. I tried out being a Tibetan scholar. I tried to learn Tibetan, and I tried out being a rock and roll musician. I tried out being an actor. I tried all these different lives, and everything kept falling apart, but it all fell apart for a reason. Then it all ended up pointing to turning 30 and then daring to dream, and much to my amazement, it was, I have a publishing, I want to have a publishing company. I just started that. I started self-publishing a little book, and then everything just fell into place. My girlfriend at the time, named Shakti Gawain, wrote a book called Creative Visualization.
Great book.
That was the first. I did 3 of my little books, and then we did that. That was the 4th book I ever published, and it just took off. It just was the right book at the right time. We sold 3 million copies, and it launched the company. And so after trying about 10 different other careers, I finally found one that just worked. The whole universe obviously supported it.
I think there's a wonderful lesson in that, and something that I've echoed in my life as well, that to allow yourself to be dissatisfied. Like, I worked in the corporate world. I was going to be a lawyer, studied law, did 5 years of that, and luckily, just before I started as a lawyer, I had a moment of clarity where I was like, I don't want to look at documents all day and argue with people all day. That's not what I want to do. And luckily, my my fear of doing something I didn't want to do was stronger than my social conditioning of, no, you should be a lawyer because you've done all of the work and you've paid all of the money, and it's a good job to have. People will respect you. And then I started to go into sales. I worked in advertising, worked in, like you, a dozen different worlds, trying to fit in. But there were, in each one, after the initial fun of this is new and exciting, it would become obvious that this wasn't me. Like, I would rebel against the organizational structure or the corporation or however it would. And what I've learned since then is that's, it's a sign from the universe or your soul or your spirit saying, this ain't you. Like, try something different. And it's, in my experience, the people living the biggest lives, the most fulfilled, enjoying the most abundance, having the biggest impact, are the ones that dare to listen to that discontent and not cover it up, not go, oh no, who am I to dream bigger? Oh no, this is a good job. What will my family think or my parents think if I leave this? And follow that inner knowing and not just settle. I mean, does that resonate with you? The idea of not settling unless you love something, keep playing with it.
Yes, oh, totally stay with that. I keep encouraging people, do what they love and go for it. And you probably won't please your parents in doing it. I didn't. They didn't know what I was doing. All the 20s, they thought I'd gone insane a few times, I think. But you can't please your parents. You have to really find what excites you, and yes, go for it. And don't fear failure. I think that's the one biggest problem, that we fear failure. Well, every successful person I know has failed before, and once you fail, you realize, oh, that's not so bad. Life goes on. You just go on. I have a wonderfully successful friend who has had a great career in, of all things, live theater in a relatively small town, Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Uh-huh.
He's built a $14 million theater. He's tremendously successful, named John Donahue, wonderful guy. And one thing he said, talking to him recently, he said, we should celebrate glorious failure.
Absolutely.
That's the way he talks. Like, celebrate glorious. You went for it. Don't fear failure. It means if you fail at something, it means you're going for something. You're trying. Failure is a wonderful thing. It can be an essential step to your inevitable success.
Couldn't agree more. One of the best lessons I learned when I studied NLP was they call it a presupposition, basically a belief, a model of reality to experiment with, which is there's no failure, only feedback. There's no failure, only feedback, which means every time, because usually when someone fails, they react in oh God, I'm not good enough, I'm stupid, I'm this.
Yes,
and
yes.
Whereas when it's feedback, all it means is you've learned one specific way that this thing doesn't work. So try something else. To keep trying. I mean,
I like that. That's a great way to look at it, to frame it. Yes.
Yeah,
excellent.
It's just a frame. Just a simple reframe, but has had the most tremendous impact on my life, because now, I mean, often, like sometimes with the big life, I'll create a show that I'm convinced is going to be a home run and everyone's going to love it, and it's sort of met with a collective shrug. Like, yeah. And I could beat myself up, and I just laugh, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. What can I learn? What can I try differently next time? And then inevitably we do hit the home run, and then I learn something useful. Actually, one of the things that you've shared in many of your books is the old Napoleon Hill idea that within every setback or challenge is the seed of an equal or greater benefit. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, when I was just on the verge of bankruptcy, driving into work, right when I came up with that affirmation and did the core belief process, right the same week, I was driving into the office and I heard on the radio somebody quoted Napoleon Hill. I'd never heard the quote, but it was, within every adversity is an equal or greater benefit. And I went, wow. And I realized I'd been focusing on the adversity, the problem. Oh, I'm nearly bankrupt. What can I do? I was reacting out of this fear of failure, and that just turned my thinking around. I literally pulled over off the side of the road and thought, I have to remember this. So I wrote it down right on the shoulder of the freeway. Within every adversity is an equal or greater benefit. And then underneath it, I wrote in my own words, as I drove along for a while, I got to the office, and then I wrote, within every problem is an opportunity.
Yes.
and I put them up in big words above my phone in my office, and it turned my thinking around. I'd acknowledge the problem. Yes, we're nearly bankrupt. That's a problem. Okay. We get the problem very quickly, I find. We don't need to dwell on it, usually. We get the problem. Okay. I started asking myself, what opportunities, what benefits can there be? And that turned my thinking around. And turned the whole company around quickly.
Beautiful. Another thing you've taught me a lot about is the power of the subconscious mind and how we can actually engage our subconscious mind to do a lot of the heavy lifting and hard work for us. And it's something I continue to experiment with, but especially over the last couple of years, I've enjoyed tremendous success with, because, I mean, neuroscience, the latest neuroscience studies suggest that somewhere between 95 to 99% of our resources are subconscious, and that our subconscious is at least 1 million times more powerful than our limited conscious mind, which is just, beyond the realms of belief, really. But when you start to understand that and play with it and learn how to work with your subconscious, wonderful things can happen. Talk to us about the subconscious. How do you reprogram it, and what are the results? What manifests as a result of working with your subconscious mind?
Years ago, I heard somebody on the radio, and again, I missed the words. I'd love to give them credit, because this really changed my life. He said, subconscious mind is like this incredibly powerful 5-year-old.
Yeah.
It'll believe anything we tell it. It'll believe there's monsters under a bed. Like a 5-year-old will believe, if you tell it there's a monster under the bed, a 5-year-old will believe it's a monster under a bed. So our subconscious mind is like that. It will believe what we tell it, but it is incredibly powerful. It's, as you said, we're only using just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of our capability mentally. We do have this amazing subconscious that's already doing all these incredible, amazing things, including healing our bodies every moment and rebuilding our entire body every few months or whatever. Incredibly powerful thing we've got. That's like a 5-year-old. So if you start telling it, it'll believe anything. It'll believe you're brilliant. It'll believe you're beautiful. It'll believe, you're capable of anything. It'll believe you can live the life of your dreams. You keep telling it that, it'll believe it and start. It has the power. I'm convinced. I've seen in my own life. It does have amazing power. Once you get your conscious mind and subconscious mind focused on the same thing together, it's almost limitless what we can achieve. It's only when part of our subconscious mind is working against us, that inner critic there is the problem. If that can undermine us, we can dream the greatest, most expansive dream. I want to have this wonderful life, and we can have a lot of our subconscious behind it, but then if we have this doubt, critic, we have this, fat chance, what do you think you deserve that? I don't know if you deserve that. Maybe you're not quite talented enough or smart enough, or that inner critic can completely destroy our most expansive dreams and visions. Wow.
What have you found useful in terms of techniques or tools to work with the subconscious? So the affirmations you've talked about, and the easy and relaxed manner, healthy and positive way, I've personally found that incredibly useful, as well as creative visualization, spending time every day, just no matter what's gone on, focus on my vision, like see it, start. And I've found that the subconscious mind, I've read that book where it talks about it being like a 5-year-old, that if you show the 5-year-old the same image over and over again of this abundance and this freedom and this impact, and you're confident and you're loving and all of that stuff, eventually, whether it's a few days, weeks or months, it gets the message and it internalizes that and then starts to proceed as if that is true, which in my experience results in greater confidence and clarity. And I want to talk to you about manifesting as well. It seems as if when you're in that state, when your conscious and unconscious are aligned, the universe brings opportunities, new people, new creative breakthroughs, synchronicities, and otherwise allows you to flow from one step to the next. And I believe the next step is always revealed. We don't have to have the whole plan figured out. The next step will pop up and you do that, and then the next, and so on. Do you believe in manifesting? Is that how you've created this incredible success and this happiness?
Yeah, absolutely. You captured it beautifully.
Thanks.
I've often thought that you can't see the whole process, but we can set it in motion, and then the next little step always becomes obvious, and it's a simple, easy step. There's nothing daunting about it. There's even I've often thought there's nothing you have to come to believe in what I've in this process. I never had to come to believe in anything or make like a leap of faith or to say I believe in affirmations or anything. No, I just tried them.
Yeah.
I just tried them with an open mind and saw these things work. An affirmation is powerful. It sets our subconscious mind in gear. One real simple thing I found recently for dealing with that inner critic is to just sit down and have a dialogue with it, an inner dialogue. And sit down and imagine. I do a little, you could find it if you go to YouTube. I've done a few little meditations, and I have one, it's like a 3-minute meditation where I just have people sit, and first they sit with their conscious awareness. You imagine, okay, we all have this conscious awareness that we observe everything from. It's non-judgmental. It's our field of awareness, and we observe all our inner selves, our inner sub-personalities, if you will, from there. And so in our awareness, we can have our dreamer or our magician, our entrepreneur come and say, I have a dream. I want to do this dream. And then you have the inner critic come and say, yeah, fat chance. And then you have them, that inner dreamer say to the inner critic, you know what? I want your support in this dream. I want you to support my dream. It's really important for me. I want to work with you. I want you to show me the best steps to take to manifest this dream. I don't want you to shoot down this dream. I want you to support it, to say, yes, this is important. This is a good thing to do with my life.
Yeah.
So I want your support, and I want you to show me. I want you to become discriminating wisdom instead of critical wisdom. I want you to be discriminating and show me the right next steps to take. And don't shoot down my dream, but support my dream. And
beautiful.
Literally doing that in your imagination can really help get that inner critic on your side rather than undermining you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And actually in that same book that you mentioned, in A Funny Synchronicity, one of the bits of advice the guy gives, and his name has left me for a minute, but I'm sure I'll think of it and share it with the audience. But he suggests giving your subconscious mind a name so that you're actually recognizing it as an entity. And when I read that, I thought, oh, that's kind of nuts. But then what popped in my head was the name Buddy, which is not really a name we have in English. It's more an American name. But I was like, oh, Buddy, the connotations there, he's my friend. And I started referring to this critic that was constantly telling me all the reasons why I couldn't, and all the reasons why I'd fail, and all the things that could go wrong. I sort of humanised it by being like, okay, buddy, that's cool, thanks for warning me, but what would have to happen for this to be a reality? What were you scared of? What would you be excited by? And I know it sounds a bit nuts even now, but it really, really genuinely worked. And now, honestly, my subconscious is with me. Like I very rarely get those pangs anymore. So I would invite everyone watching to play with this, like start a dialogue and see where it leads you, because once that subconscious is on the team, it's on the same team as your conscious mind, you literally just direct it by focusing on the vision, dreaming up the ideal dream, and then you let that guide you, and it really, really will. Yeah. One of the biggest goal of the Big Life community is how to create abundance doing work they love, and we've touched on it throughout this great conversation. Visionary Business is, as I mentioned at the start, one of my favourite books about creating a business that's based on love and service and passion. And also you wrote a phenomenal book called How to Think Like a Millionaire, which is short and simple and concise, and everyone, please read it. It's incredible. And between those books, you've really transformed the way I think about money and abundance and business. Do you think you could share a few of the key principles and key insights that you've learned that will help my audience to create incredible financial abundance, but doing something that they really love and care about?
To me, it even it all sprang from my ideal scene, daring to dream my ideal. I realized, oh, I want to do what I love.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, I want to do what I love and make lots of money. Why not make
Why not?
lots of money doing what I love? That sounds like a wonderful thing to do. That's where it all started. And then dealing with the doubts and fears that arose, I found it's very easy once you deal with your doubts and fears. It's easy and fun and enjoyable to do what you love to do and make it work financially. Now, maybe some people's ideal scene would be to do what they love to do, but then have another source of income or something, set it up. Not everyone, when they really do their ideal scene, probably not everyone will create something that they can do what they love and from that make a ton of money. I mean, I remember one of the great composers of the 20th century, and I forget which one of the big modern composers, was an accountant.
Wow.
And once he became world famous, traveling all over the world with orchestras, all his friends kept saying, "Why don't you quit your day job?" And he said, "No, I know myself too much. I'm a type A, and so I put it into accounting, so music is fun and joyful. And if I quit doing the accounting, I would turn music into a job, and it wouldn't be fun anymore." So he knew himself very well, and he found how to do what he loved, and then create the income from other places. So there's that always as an option. But for me, my ideal, when I dream my ideal, is why not do what I just love to do and make that work for me financially, completely abundantly. And that's exactly what I've done.
So in addition, you got the ideal scene. So that's basically the vision, the big dream that you go for. And we've talked about the core belief process. When the fears and doubts come up, learning how to let them go and to let that energy pass. And to work with your subconscious mind. So to make sure that vision, that ideal scene is communicated to your subconscious mind. Is there anything else that you've learned in terms of making many millions of dollars and doing so from a place of serving humanity? Anything, any tips or insights that you can share with us to actually help people go from taking that vision and turning it into something where you can make a great living?
I know I've said it before, we touched on it before, but in dealing with those doubts and fears, I've found there's nothing more powerful than the right affirmations. That's how you actually deal with those doubts and fears. Anything that arises, if you're saying, "Oh, I'm not capable of this," or whatever it is, if you find the right affirmation that says, "I am now creating success in an easy and relaxed manner," you find the right affirmation, you literally do overcome those doubts and fears. And then once you do, there really are no limits. So you can dream, and I encourage people, go for those dreams. You'll never regret it.
No.
You'll never regret it at all. I know, Shakti Goenka and I were laughing with her book, Creative Visualization, that sold like 6 million copies or something. And all the workshops we used to do together, and we started thinking about all the people that have quit their day jobs because of us.
Yeah.
We were talking about thinking, and we both realized not one of us has ever had an email or letter from someone who regretted quitting their day job. We've had literally hundreds, between the two of us, probably thousands over the years now, of people that have said, "Thank you. I read your book. I quit my job. I did my dream." Or a lot of people, some people kept their job and found out how to really make something work, whatever it is. So many people we've encouraged them always to go for their dreams. They'll never, ever regret it. And they don't. I've never had one person yet regret it. Not one.
Beautiful advice and profound. And I really hope everyone listening takes that on board and allows that to play in your consciousness a little while. Let that impact, because I couldn't agree with you more that when you follow that inner nudge, wherever it may be, maybe you got the whole vision, or maybe it's just a sense to get away from what you're doing now or move towards this one little thing. The next step is always revealed. It will always, like the universe will always give you the next little thing that you can do and you can take action on, and it's a beautiful, wonderful game to play. Marc, man, thank you so much for sharing all this. It's such a pleasure to meet you after reading your book so many times over and over and really embedding them in my consciousness. It's lovely to see you're even lovelier than I'd imagined. So thank you. One final question that I ask all my guests: what does living a big life mean to you?
I think we've really discussed it. For me, it's daring to dream your ideal scene. Daring to dream it and daring to go for it. And you just go for it in spite of doubts and fears. The first step will be obvious. You just take that step and then the next one. And that's the big life, your ideal. Dare to dream your ideal. That's hugely expansive when anyone thinks about it.
Beautiful. Marc Allen, thank you so much for coming on The Big Life. You're an amazing dude and have helped me so much. And I know that you'll help thousands of people watching now as well. And until the next time, think big, live big, and remember you can create any life that you choose. Dream up that ideal scene. Boom. Peace.